Tomorrow, I'm going to ruin his life. Story time. I've been with my boyfriend for 3 years now. We had planned on getting married when our lives had settled down. I love him more than anyone else in this world and I've sacrificed so much for him. I've moved away from home, turned down jobs, and it was all just so I could stay with him. I stood by his side when he decided to go back to school and I just gave him the world. Then he cheats on me. I found out over a month ago, but the scumbag got cocky. And I found out he was cheating on me with 2 different women. One of them is a TA at his university, and the other one is his best friend's girlfriend. I write this post choking back venom. I loved him so much, but now he will be the world I burn to nothing. So I pay for everything since he quit his job last year to go to school. I was more than happy to help. I make enough to support us both. The only upside of it is that all of his student loans are in his name and have no connection to me. It'll hurt to push the scumbag out to sea, but I'll survive. So I've held out for a month, which is enough time to plan what I like to call the day his world burns. So tomorrow we are hosting a party. I've arranged for his family to come, but unfortunately my family can't attend. I've packed everything valuable already and the suitcase is in the back of my car. So my brother will come and pick up the car during the event tomorrow, which my boyfriend would normally drive himself to school in, even though the car is in my name. The joint account, which is all my money anyway, is already empty. The event will be great and he thinks it's so that we can announce our engagement to his family. However, what will happen in reality is this. I will announce my departure from his life. I already have a new job lined up which is in a different state. I'll start by showing him the screenshots of what he said to these other girls and the many other degenerate things his mind came up with. And then these will all be passed around the room. I will then hand him the notice to vacate as I've already broken our lease. We need to be out of the property by the end of the month. I will then end off by saying that I've reported that he was sleeping with one of the TAs from one of his classes last semester, and that I am really sad that I won't see the fallout from that situation. Oh, and his friend also has a message for him that I will deliver, informing him that his friendship group never want to see him as well. And with that, I will leave, and I will not look back. Storytime updates. If you haven't watched part 1, go watch that first. Yesterday, I planned to ruin his life in front of his whole entire family. I worked for a month to create a scenario that I knew would cut him the deepest. I had patiently been waiting for the moment to storm out of this man's world with a blaze of glory. And then my story hit the front page of Reddit. So I realised I'd messed up when he wasn't replying to my text anymore. He hadn't shown up hours after he said he'd be home. So, I was hoping that it was just a happy accident. Listen, I don't know how many men in the world are cheating on their soon-to-be fiancé with their best friend's girlfriend and the teaching assistant from their school. However, the one who mattered in my plan found my Reddit post. So I called his mum and found out that he had run home to his parents' house. He had told them that we'd had an argument and he thought that we were probably through. I was, and to be fair, still am livid with myself. So his mum rang me and asked what had actually happened because he'd left out some details. So I quite happily told his mother. I then heard her shouting before she hung up. I then texted my ex and said that he had until the morning to return my car until I reported it stolen to the police. And if the car wasn't there in the morning, I'd send screenshots of the messages that he sent to the girls to his parents and to his siblings. Safe to say, the car was sitting in my driveway the next morning when I woke up. I did contemplate sending the texts anyway, but then his mum sent me a really heartfelt text yesterday apologising for her son's behaviour. That is not the right colour. And I feel like his family can definitely be spared from his degenerate actions. Me and my dad are moving all of my stuff later today and I will not be coming back. And I know you'll be watching this, you cowardly piece of shit. Just know that I'm not above sending out the screenshots if you ever dare to come back into my life. Oh, and your best friends now know all the information and I can't control what they do with that, so good luck. This is the split-second decision that changed my life. So one day I decided to break up with my partner. The timing just wasn't right. I was only 20 and I just wanted to go out and party. I had a full-time job and on top of that, I was in a full-time student program for aerospace engineering. I called her and asked if we could meet at the science building, and to this day, I don't know why I picked the science building. I think it was because it was close to her dorm and close to the parking lot, so I could get it over and done with and then dip as quick as I could. And as I saw her walking towards me, I looked at her for the last time as my girlfriend, and at that point, I started reminiscing about our relationship. There was all the ups and downs, how it began, and at this point, it had only really been about 6 months. And I thought as she was walking towards me, and she was 100 and odd feet away at this point, I had started dating her because she was marriage material. She was mature, beautiful, and super fun to be around. And anyone would be so lucky to have her. It would have been so hard to find someone like her. And not only were our sense of humour super similar, we also really complemented each other as well. I would hate to see her cry and it would have been so hard to find someone like her again. Actually, do you know what? It wouldn't have been hard at all. It would have been absolutely impossible. So I was thinking, yes, it's going to be hard to find someone, but at least I'm going to get these next 3 to 4 years to myself. And after that, I'll just have to find someone as perfect as her to spend the next 40 years with. But then it hit me that I'd be trading like 40 years of pure joy for 3 to 4 years of just immature fun. And that was when I realised I was about to make one of the biggest mistakes of my life. And it was only when she got about 30 feet away from me that I decided to change my mind. So fast forward, we are now 28. This woman is now my wife of 3.5 years and is currently carrying our first son. And now I just couldn't be happier. My boyfriend has a work wife and I hate it. Story time. Me and my boyfriend have been together for nearly 4 years now, and we've been long distance for 3 of those years. This has been because of the pandemic and the fact that we both just live in different cities. There have been absolutely no reasons for me to not trust this man. All of these years long distance, nothing has ever happened for me to doubt his feelings or lose his trust. That was until 3 months ago. In our relationship, we often talk about our days, like what happened at work, etc. And everything was like pretty normal until he started talking about this one co-worker. We'll call her Amy. So my boyfriend, we'll call him Steve, has worked there for 2 years and Amy had worked there for like 5+ years. And to be honest, I can't even say if they only recently met because they've always been in the same department and on the same team. In all his time working there, I have never heard him talk about Amy, at least sort of not how he's talking about her now. So anyway, buckle in. So Steve starts telling me how amazing Amy is and how he is just so happy that he has found Amy as a friend. Now I was all alright with that until he says that she is his work wife. Now I know the concept of a work wife and a work husband, and to be frank, I don't like that. So at that point, I asked how long they had been each other's work spouse. And he said it had been about 3 months. And then he said about how his office had started to joke about how good him and Amy looked together. So apparently his office are trying to get them together by giving them projects that they always have to do, just the two of them. And this has made them grow closer. He always tell me how they look after each other. And Amy even goes as far as to pack my boyfriend lunch every day. So apparently Amy would often ask him what he wanted to eat, then she would go home, cook it and bring it for his lunch the next day. You know, I really couldn't bear to hear anymore. I just felt so betrayed. I just feel so lied to. I just keep thinking about all the times I'd asked how his day was and this Amy girl and these stories just never came up. I didn't even know Amy and him were even that close. And then I never had any idea about his co-workers teasing them. And now I just don't know what to do. I have spoke to Steve about it, but he says that I'm just blowing things up for no reason. And I just feel so betrayed. What do you think I should do? Am I the arsehole for not listening to my mother-in-law's speech at my wedding? So I just hate speeches. I've never really seen the appeal for them and I just think they're really boring. So when it was my turn to get married, I requested no speeches at all. We told everybody that we loved them and that we knew that they loved us. So if they wanted to say anything to us, they could say it to us in private. So our whole wedding celebration lasted a weekend and we only had our loved ones there. My husband is super into games, so our wedding planner planned like a Taskmaster style game and everybody loved it. So dinner came and then my mother-in-law stands up. So she starts by saying, I know we've all been banned from doing speeches by the bride, but there's only one day my son's going to get married, so I'll do what I want. I'm not going to lie, I didn't hear the rest because I stopped listening because I started to see red. My sisters and bridesmaids were all in absolute shock. I just pretended like she wasn't talking and carried on the conversation with me and my girls. And I mean, safe to say my mother-in-law was furious. My sister-in-laws were furious, my husband was furious. He was literally that mad that he would not talk to us for the rest of the night. And it was our wedding day. He went as far as to not even look at me for the rest of the night. And for the rest of the night, my husband just sat side-sulking in his seat. I wanted to make sure that my night wasn't ruined and the rest of my family's night wasn't ruined, so I had a blast. And then the next day, I spent the day with my family and friends. Me and my husband spoke the day after that and he said that it was so wrong what I had done to his mum on our wedding day. He also said that he kind of knew she'd do it because there was nothing we could say, no matter how many times, that would shut her up. Now, that's probably a good time to add that we know that his mother-in-law just loves making speeches. Like, they can be 15 to 20 minutes long sometimes. My husband just kept saying that I had humiliated his mum. He said I'd been a bad wife for disrespecting his mum in front of all of our families. So what do you think? I walked in on my boyfriend of 4 years and my twin sister. Story time. And just wait till you hear his excuse. So me and my boyfriend met when we were in college. Recently I was let go from my job, so I've been waitressing as a way to pay our rent. I love my boyfriend so much and I just really don't want to lose him. However, I had this feeling in my gut that was telling me that it was time to end the relationship. So let's bring it real time. 2 days ago, I was sent home from work. And this literally never ever happens, so I didn't even think to text my boyfriend to let him know that I was coming home early. I just keep thinking of how different everything would be if I had just texted him before I left. So when I got home and I walked through the door, I didn't really notice anything different. There was nothing unusual. That was until I got to my bedroom and I started to hear these dreadful noises. I walked in and my whole world just shattered. It wasn't just any girl that my boyfriend was with either. It was my twin sister. So for some backstory on me and my twin sister, and I won't get into it too much, but we weren't even on good terms before all this happened. I hadn't even attempted to even talk to my sister about this yet, and I blocked her when she tried to call me. My boyfriend then left and stayed a night with a friend after I told him that I needed time to think about what I'd seen. That night, I kid you not, I got through a pint of ice cream. I cried until literally nothing else would come out. My boyfriend then sent me a text and explained he had thought it was me the entire time. Now, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's because, obviously I've known her longer, so I can see really obvious differences between me and her. Despite all that, I'm just absolutely devastated. Am I the arsehole for telling my parents the truth about my sister's fiancé? So I have a stepsister and we'll call her Jen. Mine and Jen's parents got together when we were teenagers and we just never clicked. I don't have anything against her or anything, we just aren't that close. So from the ages of 22 to 26, I worked at my stepdad's company. Jen worked there too, and she actually still does. Whilst I was there, I started to get friendly with this guy, we'll call him Pete. And whilst I was there, everyone would joke about Pete having a bit of a crush on me. I literally never saw him like that, so I didn't think anything of it. And I obviously never even thought that it was a possibility. However, when I started dating my now husband, things started to get a little bit awkward between me and Pete. So eventually I got a new job and went somewhere else, and me and Pete didn't stay in contact. A few months later, I see that him and Jen have started to date on Pete's social media. And then he and Jen got engaged this time last year. And my stepdad has actually agreed to pay for the wedding. A few weeks ago, an old colleague of mine got married. So me, Jen, Pete, and my parents all went to the wedding together. And safe to say, Pete got a little bit over-friendly at the reception. To be honest, I just put this down to him having drank a little bit too much alcohol. However, later in the evening, I was outside just getting some air. I made it very clear to Pete that I felt very uncomfortable, so I just went back inside. Next day, I woke up feeling ridiculously awkward, so I decided to call Jen and tell her everything that had happened. Jenny then tried to accuse me of ruining her relationship. She then said to not make anything worse and to not tell our stepdad, since I'd already done enough. I agreed because I didn't really feel like I had any right to continue to be a spanner in the works. A week ago, I was on FaceTime to my parents and we got talking about Jen's wedding. My face must have changed when they were talking about Pete, because they immediately asked what was wrong. I insisted there was nothing, but they said that they had seen the way Pete was acting towards me and that he'd been following me all around the wedding and that other people had caught onto it as well. After about 20 minutes of them thinking the worst that could have happened, I told them the truth. I literally begged them not to do or say anything because him and Jen were really good now, but he did end up calling Jen and they had the biggest argument. He refused to pay for the wedding and he even said that he wouldn't even go to the wedding. So since then, Jen has been borderline harassing me, texting me, calling me, posting on social media about how much of a bad person I am. I even had some of their work friends text me and say that I had probably ruined Pete's career now. I kept trying to explain that if I'd have not told them, the consequences would have been a lot worse. But apparently I should have just been able to hide the whole thing. Friends keep saying that I've done nothing wrong, but the whole wedding is cancelled now and my stepdad isn't talking to Jen anymore. So what do you think? Am I wrong for not being upset that my friend's dog could die because of me? So this weekend I threw a garden party and I invited all of my friends and their partners. One of my friends, we'll call her Amy, takes her dog literally everywhere with her. I told her when I invited her that there'd be no pets allowed, considering that I had cats and they didn't really like any other animals. So fast forward to the garden party and Amy turns up with her dog. I very politely reminded her that no dogs are welcome in my home or in my garden. And I asked her to please take her dog elsewhere. So I went back inside to sort some bits and I thought that Amy had left. So when I came back out to the garden, Amy was just stood there still chatting with some of our friends. And she does not live close to me, so I was very confused. So I went over to her and I was like, Amy girl, where's your dog? And she just shrugged her shoulders and said that she didn't know where her dog was. Then very passive-aggressively went on to say that she was only popping in since her dog was not welcome anymore. So I went looking for this dog and I found him at the bottom of my garden eating some of my plants. And he was just making a big ol' mess. I was quite frankly fuming and told Amy to escort herself and her dog off my property. So a few hours go by and she calls me and asks me what her dog had ate. And obviously I had no clue. I literally have a gardener who deals with everything and I just look at them and think it all looks really pretty. I did tell her though where I found him, that obviously he was eating my plants and making a mess. She started screaming down the phone at me to find out what her dog had eaten because he was now sick. I texted my gardener and asked what it could be that the dog had eaten. Unfortunately, he didn't reply and Amy called me a little bit later and was telling me that I obviously don't care if a dog was to die. My gardener still hasn't replied to me, so we still don't know. However, I don't feel like it's my responsibility that all this has happened after I told her multiple times that I didn't want her dog on my property. So what do you think? Am I in the wrong for cancelling a whole vacation when I found out my stepsister hid my passport so I'd have to stay home? I have one biological sister and 2 stepsisters. Both my stepsisters are single mums and they both live at home with my family. So there's been issues in the past where my stepsisters have asked me to babysit for them. At first, I didn't really mind because they did pay me, but it wasn't that much, so in the end, I just ended up sacking it off. So talks of this holiday start coming up, and my 2 stepsisters, we'll call them Monica and Leah, suggested that I should stay home so I could watch the children, even though I wanted to go on the holiday as well. They said this would be better than hiring a babysitter because their babies are more used to me. They also highly implied that I wasn't fond of the destination that they were booking, even though I'd made it obvious multiple times that I really wanted to go. They even suggested that my stepmom should pay me double to try and get me to look after their children. There was just a lot of back and forth going on until my dad just demanded everybody to stop bringing it up. So last week, we were supposed to go on this vacation. I had that panic that I hadn't packed my passport, so I just double checked, even though I knew I'd definitely put it in, and lo and behold, my passport was not in my bag. It was literally nowhere to be seen, and my dad was like, it's fine, we'll go back to the house and we'll try and look for it there. But my stepmom and stepsisters were adamant that they needed to get to the airport, otherwise we were going to miss the flight. And then they kept insisting that I should just stay at home and look after the kids and not try and find the passport. And I just outright refused. I was like, I am going on this holiday. And that was when my darling stepsister Monica admitted to helping Leah hide my passport so that I would have to stay home and babysit their children. She denied that this had happened. And that was when my dad threatened to cancel the holiday until they gave it back. Even though they did end up giving it back, my dad still cancelled the holiday as a way of punishing these 28-year-old women. My stepmom then said that I should be punished for making her daughters worry about their children when we were on vacation. Now, I'm being blamed for ruining the family holiday. So what do you think? Am I wrong for telling my terminally ill sister that she can't have my mum's engagement ring? So my mum passed away when I was 7, and she gave her brother / my uncle her engagement ring. The ring was originally my grandma's and it had been passed down throughout all of the women in my family. And eventually I would be able to give it to my daughter or son if they ever wanted to get married too. So my dad remarried 2 years later and our stepmom had 2 daughters. We'll call them Evelyn and Amy. And I'm not that close to them, but I also don't have anything against them either. So last month, unfortunately, Amy was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. So her boyfriend recently proposed to her and he said that she'd mentioned my mum's engagement ring because she just knew how pretty it was. And her boyfriend said that she had always wanted my mum's engagement ring because she thought it was just unreal. Her boyfriend told my dad's wife, and then my dad's wife told my dad. All 3 of them kept telling me how much she wanted the ring and that I would obviously eventually get it back when unfortunately she's not with us anymore. And that it would be nice for me to fulfill her wishes given the circumstances. I said that I really didn't want to give her the ring, however I would give them a photo of it so they could get it replicated if they wanted. And they did not like that one bit. And then they told me that I was denying her a family ring. I said, well, it's not her family ring, it's my family ring. Amy had nothing to do with my mum. So I asked my dad how Amy even knew about the ring in the first place. And he said that he'd shown Amy some pictures of my mum's ring over the past couple of years. And that he also showed her the jeweller pictures from when he was getting the ring designed. He said he thought it would have been a nice bonding moment for them when they were younger with him. My stepmom pleaded with me. Amy even wrote me a letter saying how much she'd love to wear it and how much of an honour it would be to get married wearing my mum's ring. I'm now getting shit from my dad, my stepmom and my stepsister's fiancé. But what do you think? Am I wrong for uninviting my family to my wedding over a prank? So I grew up in a family where men prank and tease each other literally on the daily. So ever since me and my fiancé, we'll call him Steve, got engaged, my dad, uncle, cousin and brother have all joked about running some tests on him. And these tests were to see what type of man Steve was. The prank started by getting Steve to play chess 4 times in a row. Bit of a shit prank if you ask me. And then it progressed to stuff like them slashing his tyres to see how he would cope with it. They were basically trying to see if he knew how to fix it like a man or if he was one of those lazy types and would have to call someone to get them to help him. They would ask him what his opinion was on birth control, religion and Jesus, and also gender equality. And if you think that's odd, just wait for it. They took him out and tested his hunting and fishing skills. Then another time, they overwhelmed him with like hypothetical situations to test his problem solving and thinking skills. But even that's not the worst of it. They kept calling him slow and soft when referring to like his physicality. But this is because he literally has asthma. They are just adamant that he's making excuses for himself. I literally begged them to stop, but my dad said that it was all just a bit of fun and this was how men were with each other. And then they told me to stop ruining their fun. Last week, they took Tim on a 3-day hiking trip. And on the trip, they ended up hiding his inhaler. Steve left the trip and returned home early to tell me what had gone down. And let's play a game of guess how I felt about this. 10 points to you if you said seething, because I was in fact seething. Brother even actually admitted to hiding it as a challenge for him. Let's just say when they got home, I exploded on them. They even said, oh, did little Stevie run home to taddle on us? I just straight up yelled at all of them and said that they weren't invited to the wedding anymore. My brother absolutely shit himself. He kept saying how it was just a prank. They'd always planned on giving him the inhaler back. My dad said he'd apologise if I insisted. But I said that Steve had already lost all respect that he had for them, and to be honest, he didn't really have that much respect for them to start with. Steve has said that he thinks that the boys in my family will always see him as a little college kid, since we did actually just meet in college. I called them all awful people, and then me and Steve left. My cousin is absolutely begging us to talk to him. We haven't heard a single thing from my uncle, but my dad is so mad, and he's now trying to get my mum involved to help reconsider the decision. But I refuse to have them at my wedding if they think it's acceptable to treat anyone, let alone my new husband, like that. My mum is saying that I'm exaggerating and I should just let bygones be bygones. So what do you think?